And I think we are live right now. Hey guys, it's 4 o'clock. We're going to be trying to bring you as many panels as we can at 4 o'clock, but we will adjust depending on the availability of who's available. So I wanted to let you guys know that we're right now on the Indie Advocates Network on Facebook. I'm going there right now to check. The panelists are, let me line them up right here. And I think that's it. So as you guys can see, this is going to be the On-Conn's Online Comic Book Connections Panels, Ideas to Ink, Storyline Development. And I'm pretty excited to have the one, the only Chuck with me today. And I'm having a bad hair day. I've been out in the Badlands getting supplies. The Badlands, knowing it.
That's your problem. I have 32 hats. These things are corona proof, man. Like my hair always looks great. Cause look. Yeah.
No, I want to do at one point the spikes. Yeah, Mohawk rub.
You gonna go full Josh Dahl? Is that what you're gonna do?
Josh Dahl can do Josh Dahl, but I want to get like the bigger one and go up to Josh Dahl and be like, mine's bigger. So we're going to be talking about taking our crazy ideas and actually making them into something. You guys requested these first couple panels. We're going to be doing writing all week, but we're going to try to do different panels every week as long as this lasts. And now the CDC's coming out. The health officials are coming out. President telling people to stay indoors. It's only starting to get more and more looking like quarantine. Which reminds me, my new song will be dropping next week. It's beginning to look a lot like quarantine. Nowhere to go. I'm stuck in my house. See, as a nerd, it's not that much. Like, we grew up nerds and geeks. Being stuck at home, it's like, wait, I have an excuse not to go out. I don't have... Yeah. No one's going to think I'm strange for staying home finally. I am...
they're going to think you're strange if you go out.
Yeah, no, now you're strange if you go out. And of course, what's the first thing I'm going to want to do? Go out. Here we are. I'm sharing it to my page. If you guys could share this out, if you know someone who needs this information, please do so. I'm also going to be dropping a link so you guys can join us on the show, believe it or not. So I'm going to put the invite in so you guys can come and ask your questions directly from us if you want to. I know this is new to everyone. This is day one of us doing this, so it's always weird on day one. So I appreciate you all hanging in with us, and as we get this format down and what we're going to be doing, it's definitely an interesting situation we got going on, and we're trying to do the best we can. Consider this me and Chuck's lemonade stand. Of course, for those who don't know, Chuck is the editor of IndieAdvocates.com. He doesn't edit what I write. In fairness to him, because that would be a lot of work. He will see things and tell me, but he's just the site editor. He gives me the opinions. And, of course, it's brought to you in part by the Indie Advocates Network, but also by Indie Volt and also by Rising Tide. We have teamed up with the other two sites and movements and whatever you want to call them, and we are all working together to get us all through this. So we're not alone. We are all doing this together. I invited some crazy kids to join us. We'll see who does join us. Obviously, we can hear that I'm live. So I'm going to go ahead and start the watch party so I can see anyone making comments. So, Chuck, let's begin right now. How do you... Okay, so the question was given to us, and this is verbatim from the actual thing, because I took the actual titles and I just used them when people gave it to me. So they asked me from idea to pen. So how do you do that? How do you take your idea and get it down to a written form? How's that work for you, Chuck?
So what I'll tell my, you can certainly just start writing. Like you can certainly just pick up and just go. But a lot of times I kind of start to mull it in your head. What does it look like? Because not every idea you have is going to be a comic. It might just be a short story. It might be a novel. It might be an audiobook entitled Essence House. It might be a graphic novel. It can be any number of things. How do you see it developing? When you see it developing like that, now you need to start having an outline. You know, what are the main pillars of that? I always say, build it like a house. Let's get our foundation done. Let's put up some boards, possibly put some walls on, then a roof. Like everything will slowly come together. So take it one step at a time. Don't turn it into something you feel like you have to. Make it, figure it, plan it out.
So now, do you think it matters in the beginning knowing where you're taking it? Do you think you have to right away start? Okay.
Oh,
so you
maybe not right away. Like you can certainly play. We've played with ideas where we're like, we're gonna do this, and then you're like, no, actually, now it feels better like this. So I mean, like with Essence House, it was gonna be a novel, and then we were like, maybe we'll make it an audiobook, and then it became episodes, and so it's certainly okay to play with it, but once you're ready to start doing something with it and really start finding it a home, I think you have to make a plan.
See, for me, when I start something, it's always an idea. I always just have a crazy idea. And a lot of times I just write down the crazy idea. And then I'll either do something with it right away or I'll sit on it. And me and you talked about this. I generally have about 100 story ideas in my catalog right now. And I'm making a novel of short stories, and I had a lot to pull from, more than I expected. And I actually cut some things out, and some of them were still just ideas. They were just literally at one page. Here's what I thought. And the minute I wrote it down, my mind went right back to why I thought of that. 90% of the time I knew why. 10% was probably I wrote it down after a dream or I was in a bad mood, and I just blurted something out, but I still made something of it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, I have an idea. Do I have to copyright the idea? Do I actually have to write it to be a copyright? Is it like, that's the question that gets asked me a lot. Do I actually have to copyright an idea? How do I copyright an idea? Do you know the answer to that?
You can't copyright an idea.
There it is. You cannot copyright, trademark, patent an idea. Even to get a patent, you cannot. This is an important thing. For those of you wondering who want that Netflix deal because you just thought of a great idea, hire a writer. That's the answer. You now have to hire a writer. That's just your life. Live in it. Welcome to being writers who have to hire artists to get our stuff done. So if you're an idea maker, you have to hire someone who can write the idea out for you. There's no harm in that. There are people who are credited as creators, and nothing but respect. And we're dropping the link in our section now so you guys can come on board and ask us a question directly. Everyone's invited today. You won't be necessarily a panelist. You'll just be a person we bring in to ask a question, and then we'll answer your question, and we'll keep people backstage so we don't get too crowded in here. Because Chuck's been nice enough to give us our time. Luke should be here soon. I think Luke is running late with the way the outside world is acting today, because everyone feels like quarantine's about to hit tomorrow. So I understand running a little late today, but absolutely you cannot copyright an idea. So please stop asking that to me at all the cons. Second big question I get about this is, do you have to write it a certain way, Chuck? I think Chuck froze or I froze. It's always hard to tell at these moments who froze. Chucky, you there? See him sort of bobbing.
I'm here.
Okay. Did you hear my question? Because you're not answering it. I think we're on a delay.
No, I'm not. Yeah, no, you went really staticky.
Oh, okay. Oh, so I asked, do you have to write a script a certain way when you're just writing down the idea?
No.
Should I write it out as a comic book script?
I literally got the last sentence of that. Should I write it down as a comic book script?
With an idea, do you have to write it down as a comic book script?
No, certainly not. No. I would, for anything that you're doing, I would write it as a story. But I would more, there's a million different ways to do it. For me personally, I prefer to have an outline. I would like to have, a page or two of where I see the story going, maybe some idea of the characters who are involved, because the characters are so important. And just feel it out. And then, the length it is, how long it might go, even what best used in.
So should they just write it down, like everything in their head, and write every single idea they have down? What's that? I'm not sure.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, it can't hurt, honestly. Like, just go to town, because it's so easily edited, or even just parts are ignored. Like, you can, cut through stuff and say, man, that that was a dumb idea, or that won't add to it, or that's no good. Just get it down. Don't even consider editing that early on.
All right, so I have an idea. I write it down. What do I do next? What's really the next step I should take?
It's about finding your medium. Well, like, how do you want to attack it? You have your idea, you have an outline, you kind of know where your story is. What do you want to turn it into? Where does it work best? And where do you work best? Just because you're a writer doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be able to write a film or a comic or whatever. Where do you think that you can best tell the strongest story?
And okay, so let's say I decide I want to do a comic book. Should I just convert it? Do I get an editor? What do I do now?
I mean, if you've never written a comic, or you don't know anything about it, learn. Look at other comic scripts, read comics, just learn as much as you can, and start to play with it. Feel out how to do things. Getting editors, not a bad idea, but it really depends on why you're doing it. Is it a hobby? Are you just doing it for fun? Then maybe having an editor isn't as important as just getting something done. But if you really want to try to do something with it and turn it into something, I would get at least like a mentor, someone who knows what they're talking about, who can kind of go, okay, this is what your next step is and where you should be going, and maybe what should be happening here.
All right, so what type of script do you personally use? Like, how do you determine the script? Does it matter the artist you're working with? Do you do it based upon a different type of story? How does Chuck pick the script type, or do you just use one script type?
I, for the most part, do use one script type. For me, I want to know what my pacing looks like in my book, and I want I'm kind of a control freak. Not like really crazy. Like, if I know the artist, or I know what they're good at, I might just write a panel that says, this is the basics of what I do, what I want, go to town and have fun. But from me, you're going to see things like page 1, 5 panels, panel 1, and I'll go through the panel description, and then I'll say who's talking, and I might say, like Claire 1, Claire 2, Claire 3, and that shows that there's several bubbles, and it shows the letter, or how to kind of break down those bubbles and how I'd like to see them. It's because usually as a writer, we're kind of in charge of that moving forward, how we want it to look and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like giving them the most direction possible early on kind of works. And if they want to do something themselves, I always tell them, hey, be open to experimenting and playing around, and let me know if there's something that you want to fool around with, and we can certainly do that. But I try to get down as much of that stuff as possible.
All right, so we got the script ready. Where do we go now? Like, how do we get it to the actual inking phase where there's comic books made? Like, what's the next step?
You need to think about the style that would best work for your comic, and then you need to start looking for people. There's lots of great groups for connecting writers and artists and whatnot. But you're gonna be like the hot girl at the prom who went single. where everyone's just trying to get in. And really, even before that, what's your budget? That's even before all that. What is your budget? What can you afford? Because that's important.
Can't I just work with people for exposure, Chuck? Can't I just offer my ideas? Is going to be great. It's going to go to Hollywood. Won't everyone just work for me for free because I'm making the next Star Wars, man? It's telling you, this is epic.
Well, I'm afraid that you're not the only one who's doing that, and sadly, we can't believe every person who feels that way. One of those people might be right, but you might not be the one. So, look, you can do exposure deals. You really can. Like, you can tell someone, look, man, I want to do this and I have no money. And they have the perfect opportunity to say, well, I'm a pro. I make money off of this. This is how I make money. I can't do that. And then the conversation for you is done. You don't get to, harp on them or anything, because, that it is what it is. But you might find someone down the road who's like, you know what, actually, I'm trying to get into art. I'm having a really hard time finding a writer, and, your idea and script look a plan, and do that. That's gonna be difficult to find someone like that. But I mean, if you think about it, if you're willing to do free work, I'm sure there's other people who are willing to do free work. You really have to think, though, how long is that gonna go for? Like, you can't be asking for free work 5 years into your career. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how it works. You give someone a shot and then you move on. Like, my first editing job was technically a free job. I didn't get paid. But then afterwards, I was told by the person, man, you did an amazing job. I love working with you. I'm going to pay you anyways. And that was such a stand-up thing for that person to do for me, because they didn't have to. We had a deal. I promised I'd work for free, and they took care of me anyways. And that's always affected me very, very strongly throughout the rest of my career, to be honest. So I think it's important to really see what people are doing and just, work with them. Free still means that you're not giving them any good reason to give you their best. So, yeah.
All right. So I think we touched upon it because they didn't really ask about the art aspect of it. We are free to open every questions. Few things I'll throw in just from my own experiences. I think everything Chuck said was spot on. Few things that I've noticed on the outskirts of that is be ready to write your first script and never show anyone that. No one ever gets to see my rough draft. Chuck has seen what I've called my first draft. He has never seen my rough draft. And even by the time I'm giving it to him to edit, he's gotten the third version of it. Like, I only ask him to read a rough, and I tell him too, hey, dude, this is a first draft. Don't pay attention to it. Just tell me if I have something. And if I do, let me know. I think we have a caller. Is there a question we can ask you, Optimus Prime? We're wondering, Optimus Prime, what brings you here?
The inner jaw. I've come for the inner jaw.
So, does this mean that there's a corona infestation around you?
Oh yes. Well, not in the home.
Okay, good.
But, okay, you guys are familiar with the movie 8 Mile?
Yeah.
Okay, so I live on 21 Mile. Okay, so far from the dregs of 8 Mile, but they had an exposure up on 23 Mile. That's 3 miles from my house. Nah, bruh. Nah, son. I'm wrapped up. I ain't going out. I'm scared.
You realize the masks don't work, right?
I know.
You look cool. You look cool, but they don't work.
So you know what the masks are for, though, right?
The rob people with toilet tissue?
The balaclava. No, the whole purpose of the mask really right now is so that you don't touch your own face.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
really,
that's
you know what I'm really,
that's the importance of the mask.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm really upset about?
What's that?
Everyone told me that a mask was so important. It was so important at first. I went out and I bought boxes of masks, and all of a sudden it wasn't. So now I just threw away all my condoms because clearly they've been lying to us the whole time, and condoms aren't important either.
Well, I mean, those are only important if you're having sex, so it's okay.
Oh,
No.
look, I don't know where I've been, so when it's between me and me, I gotta watch what I'm gonna catch.
When I came in, were you guys discussing editing?
No, we're discussing today's topic. I don't know if I sent it to you. Today's topic is in sort of what we're doing now, riffing, is kind of the creative process, and that's why we're kind of joking right now. It's about creating a story and creating some ideas.
But I'm open to talking about editing if that's something you wanted to bring up.
Well, it's important. Editing is super important with this because that's 90% of this. Because we're talking about from idea to ink. And in there's an editor. I'm sorry, no matter who you are, because there's a story editor, because that's what I do for a lot of people. I'm a story editor. And for those who don't know, I'm the person who comes in there and says, your story makes no sense because you've missed a major inner part of it. Mm-hmm. I am the type of writer who hides things that don't seem to make sense, but then suddenly in an issue or two, it makes total sense. And a lot of people don't have that skill, especially in the beginning, to understand that they have to connect their story and make it flow. What they do is they throw out their ideas, they get to start to finish and forget the middle. So that's why I think editors are so important. And I think a good editor is a story editor, is a polisher with the grammar and with the spelling, and is even believe it or not, later a lettering editor who notices the lettering, and the panel editor who will notice when your panels don't make sense, because that's something me and Chuck have talked about this a dozen times. The panel setup on some of these books are ridiculously stupid, where you don't even keep a flow and you take. And here's the thing, and I'm going to say this, and this is super important. You as a creator are taking someone to a make-believe realm. So they're joining it willingly and suspending belief. If you give them a reason to come back into reality, they're not going to like your story. So mistakes, drop them out. Pacing mistakes, drop them out. Story mistakes, drop them out. Using the wrong name of a character at a certain point drops them out. And bad lettering or even different lettering can make them drop out. I did what everyone thought I couldn't letter at first because the lettering I chose to do is so different. I decided I was going to create the Rob style. Turns out you have to be famous to create something and name it after yourself. And I'm not famous enough. Everyone called it the retard style and told me to learn how to letter. And in fairness, they were shocked when I actually did know how to letter. There were things I was doing, and this is just the truth, and this is something you need to learn right away. And then we're going to talk to the gentleman because I don't want to spend all the time talking. Sometimes when we create too much for our own selves. And I'm dyslexic, and a lot of my early lettering was based upon my dyslexia, and it was what worked for me. But I forgot about you normal people who aren't a freak like me and how you read normally. So I had to go back and letter it for you, the majority of people. Really, you should all learn how to read like me. Just saying. I'm going to be king when the world ends. I just want you to get used to saying, Hail King Rob, because I'm coming. Yeah, working out's going to finally make sense.
Hey, Varian, am I the only one who heard, read like me?
He's got lofty goals, Rob does. But you never know. I mean, you never know, man. I mean, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say, listen, a couple years ago, they told me Trump was running for president, and I said he'll never win. And well, look where we are today. So I'm going to be kind to King Rob, just in case.
I will be a fair ruler. I will. To the people I like.
Yeah. I said earlier I was going to reinstitute Prima Nocta. I think that it's best. I think it's fair.
I think so.
Yeah. Rob, you mentioned the creative process. For me, I remember one of my most creative points. There's been two, but one of the most creative points was when I used to attend my local comic convention, our local big show here in Michigan, and I would come out of that show feeling a lot more just ready to do something. Really, really pumped, really amped to knock to just draw a book. So being around other people can really influence you and inspire you to want to go out there and create something. The other times, I got sick and I was in the house. I was laid up in bed for 3 months straight, which good training for now, right? um, and I was all very creative at that point. But when you're putting together a story, I tell people it's essential. You get that laptop, whatever you can, and a laptop or notepad, and you write your story down in there, and you give it to somebody, and you give it to somebody who will tear it apart, will pick holes in it, just start picking stuff. Because I mean, really, I have my wife ask me questions all the time about my story. Hey, does this make sense? What do you think about that? Just so if she asks me a question, because I guess when you create something, you tend to fall in love with your own words, and you think there's no way that there's nothing wrong with this. This is perfect. This is complete. Like this is Shakespeare, and then you find out it's not. You find out that you're an idiot, and that you missed out on two very important questions, or even the questions you didn't even know to ask. I mean, how many? I don't know. Have you got either of you ever gotten to a story and realized like 8-9 pages in there was no story?
No.
No.
I think I know what you mean. It wasn't the same story I wanted to write. What I could do is take characters I really liked, and I realized the story that I was writing didn't fit for them, and I was able to take the character and transplant them somewhere else.
Okay.
Because like perfect example. Believe it or not, way back when I first started my comic book career, Barbara Unleashed was supposed to be a throwaway one-shot. And it was going to be a quick guide on how to play safely in the BDSM culture. And it was going to be a lot more sexual in nature. And as I started to write it, I realized that if I did that, it would be labeled porn, and I wouldn't like that feeling being thrust upon me because it wasn't what I was trying to do. Not to say that I'm above writing porn. I mean, I'll be honest with everyone, and I've said this, I would write porn for the right amount of money. I would use a nom de plume. I've been offered, but the offer for the money wasn't good enough. Because basically, like, I guess porn writers don't make a lot until they make their bones. As funny as that sounds, they don't make it till they make it. So they were offering me like $10 for a script, and I was like, hell no, I'm not $10 for a script.
Well, and I've heard writing porn for exposure is totally different. That's a completely different thing.
You get a different type of exposure. And
absolutely.
And speaking of exposure, here's Gandalf.
We're not here to talk about our porn careers, are we?
We are today.
Right? Oh, no. No. I got to go. I didn't do it. That was not me in that movie.
What movie, Randy?
None. No. Nope. Not. Nope.
No.
Not me.
Kidding around aside, today's topic is taking an idea and getting it into actual print. Because we have so many people who come up to our cons and they go, oh, I have this idea and I want to trademark and copyright this idea. And it's like, oh, honey, you can't do that. You can't copyright an idea. You have to actually write a story. And I think a lot of people, especially writers, credit to artists. Artists go out there and they make Spider-Man. And they work on their skill and they do something. You know, I've spoken against fan art. But end of the day, they're doing more than 90% of writers who I have never heard one of my artist friends say, I have artist block. I've heard I have injuries. I can't feel my fingers. I worked too much last night and my back is wrecked. But you don't hear artists go, oh, I couldn't draw today because I just wasn't inspired.
We're still not here to talk about our porn career. Talk about wrecking your back.
I will say, though, Rob, well, we do have bad art days. I have days where I can't draw like that face, and I forget who it was. I'm not sure if it was Randy. It probably wasn't Randy, but another artist told me.
Was it good advice?
Well, it depends on. Is it screw it, just move on?
That's me.
Okay. And maybe it was you. Screw it, just move on. Hey,
that seems like the motto of my first marriage.
it was get the book done, and if you have time,
Screw it.
now you can go back and fix that face that you're unhappy with.
Yes.
Get the book done.
Yes.
So there have been times where I wasn't happy with a page, and usually it's a whole page, and then I have to come back. But hopefully the book is done. Now I got that time to come back in there and rearrange that page. Because I think we said it before too, Randy. How many times do you look back at a page and you're like, oh man, if I was doing that page today, it would be a lot different.
If you spent all your time fixing your mistakes, you're not going to get anything done.
Now, as a writer, do you do that, Rob? Do you go back and read a story and say, oh man, if I would have been the writer then that I am now, this story would have went completely differently?
It's a little different for us because our stories go to art, and once you're in art, you have to then pay the artist to redo something if you wanted to change it. So I think we were instantly in what Randy's talking about. Mm-hmm. You see what you did, and you don't make that mistake again. However, I did have that unique opportunity of redoing From Fetish Babies to Barbara Unleashed, and Chuck was witness to how much I had changed certain things without affecting the flow. It was just word choices. It was learning to talk more like her and keeping like when you go back and you read 1, 2, and 3 now, it sounds like the same character. But if you read the original release of Fetish Babies and Barbara Unleashed number 2, you would notice the difference in the way she was speaking, because the first issue was also edited by a different editor at first. Chuck wasn't on board yet, and that editor made me lose a bit of what I was aiming for. And by the time I brought Chuck on with number 2, he was just a proofreader, and he agreed with me. If you remember that, Chuck, you agreed with me a lot more on how she sounded, because the other editor was trying to make her sound more. And this happens with editors, and I'll admit it, and there's nothing against this. I write my characters to have a good dialogue. That means they're going to not be proper English when it's written out. Because I want them, when you read it out loud, I want it to sound right, not proper. And I can't work with certain editors because they'll try to make me say it the right way. And I use slang. I grew up in New York City. I'm going to take shortcuts in language. I use "ant," and you shouldn't have. I don't speak proper English, and I don't. My characters a lot of times won't. And if my characters do speak proper English, they're usually a condescending asshole, and that's kind of the charm of them using proper English. So it's different. So I think as writers, we never get to go back, but we always look back like artists do. Like, ooh, did I write that? I could do so much better now. I don't know any writer who. Actually, I do know a couple of writers. They're writers who aren't doing great stuff.
Well, I agree. Chuck edited a book of mine. I disagree totally. Chuck was not. He was not a good writer. He's not a good editor. Listen, he didn't understand. He took all of the black dialogue and changed it around.
Because it was a Hispanic man.
I wrote. You ain't finna do nothing. He changed it to you're not gonna do anything. And then, what was it? How your mom and them. He changed it to how were your mother and the rest of your family. I didn't appreciate it, Chuck. I didn't. I want you to change it back here. He's not a sensitivity ever. No, but I make a joke about it. But you're right. And how many times you guys, Randy, you've dealt with editors. Sorry, you dealt with editors before.
Yeah.
Do you guys have to worry about like editors coming in and trying to take over your story? Like, no, this shouldn't happen, and
that's not the way the editor works for me. So.
He's not supposed to, but I guess they do.
The editor is like it's like the guy on the slave ship sitting there beating the drum in rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. No, just kidding.
It's similar.
I saw that at a panel once, and I had to leave. But
did you leave, or were you escorted out, Randy?
No, I ran. I walked out before I started.
Before
screaming.
They could escort him out.
Yeah, before they could escort me. It's like you're either going to stand up and say something, or you're just going to leave. So I just stood up and left. But no, editors. A lot of the editors that I deal with. I let my wife read my stuff, and she catches the spelling errors, and we might talk about a plot point or two every once in a while, but that's about as far as it goes.
Chuck, as an editor, do you have to ever? Have you ever told somebody this is a horrible idea? Don't do this.
I don't think that there's necessarily such a thing as a horrible idea. It's more about horrible execution. So it's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do here, but I don't think we're executing it the way you want. Like with Barbara Unleashed, where Rob said, man, I made it, but then it felt like too much of a porn. I kind of had to dial it back. And it's like, yeah, you realize that execution was not going to give you what you wanted. So a lot of time it's just about it's not about terrible ideas. It's just how can we make this, how can we like really focus on this and make this the best version of what it could be? Because again, we also have to remind ourselves we're not all writing Shakespeare. Like that's not the end game for your book necessarily. Sometimes you're just writing a little kid's book and you're trying to have fun with people. Sometimes you're trying to write, like a popcorn movie or something. You know what I mean? And so you just have to understand what's my audience, what am I going for, and what's going to get us to where we want to be. So yeah.
Hey. You make a good point there. I'm helping Lola write a book, and she's I'm kind of like I have to catch myself because I'm kind of like editing for, even though I'm not an editor. So at some point I'm gonna turn it over to a real editor. And she's like, because this is her first time writing the book, and I'll have her bother you, Chuck. I'll have her. Here's my script. What do you think? She is, and I caught myself like tossing out ideas like, oh, you should do this, and this, and this, and I realized that's not what an editor is. She's not asking me to do that. She knows what her story is. She knows the story she wants to tell, but here I am saying, well, how about this question? How about doing this and this? And I guess it's okay to offer ideas, but, I can't take her story over.
Yeah. What I would suggest, because sometimes, the thing is sometimes they want something as far as like, hey, focus on what we're working on here, indie advocate. Sometimes you throw them some ideas, just not necessarily to get your ideas out there, but more so they can see it from different angles. Mm-hmm. Like I was handed this one a script very recently, and I understood what they were trying to get at, mm-hmm. but they had the panel layout was very wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I said, look, I see what you're trying to do here, but I don't think this is working about. Look, if it were me, I would do it like this. And I feel like it would showcase that. Right. I said, and this is why I think this would work better. And it's just, and it's a suggestion. At the end of the day, I work for you. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. And they really liked the idea, and they went and they did it. They didn't do it exactly as I said, and that's totally okay. Mm-hmm. But that's sometimes you do have to offer a little bit of advice just so they kind of see it from a different angle.
Okay, all right. Good. I tried to offer advice, but then she doesn't do it my way. I get mad.
Dude, it's tough when it's someone you love. Like when it's your wife. Like at that point, I'd be like, "Baby, I love you. You need someone who's going to be an asshole to you and not have to sleep on the couch."
she's
like
she said, I'm live on air.
That's my wife. You should be working.
She doesn't listen to me. She thinks she knows everything. Yeah, they come and see. Did you see that? One half of the show is brought to you by a little bit of Lola's boob, just a little bit. And then cameo.
Now let's not forget, and this is very important, and I really do stress this when talking to someone about their creation. That is their baby. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times we don't understand that. And I have to give Chuck credit for having a great bedside manner. And he knows I push back when I'm being edited. But I don't push back, I think, like normal people. Like a lot of people have said I'm a little different because I ask questions before I make an argument. I ask why. And that's my suggestion to everyone out there if you're a writer. I've had my story approved to be a 15-page story, and it was cut to 10 pages or 8 pages. That was painful. Seeing my story get cut like that, having to take that out. And I worked with an amazing editor to get it done. And still, I hated the experience. But I remember I would ask her questions, and I'd be honest with how I was feeling about it. And she was used to working with me, so it wasn't a problem. And, she would be like, well, if you really want to fight. And I was like, look, I'm trusting you to make this the best story it can be. You tell me how we get there, because you're the one helping me cut this down. This is a relationship. Let's get it together. I was like, but understand, every so often I'm gonna be a little upset about these cuts because they're deep to me, because this is a creation, and we had to take out a whole section of the story to make it fit that way, and it felt like I was having my heart ripped out by losing that part. But that's just life sometimes. You can't take everything so personally. I understand it's like your kid, but even your kid goes to school and your teachers or their teachers call you up and say, hey, your kid's an asshole because you're not doing the right thing at home. And then you have to fix what you're doing at home. So this is the same thing. Think of the person you're having an editor as your child's teacher, telling you what your child's not excelling at. And if you do that, you'll be better off.
Now, there is a flip side to that. Writing story, I know that can be rather, like if someone edits, you can get upset about that. Art editors, oh my gosh. Because an art editor, wait till you get the story and go, hey, that whole panel isn't right. Redo it. So that panel you spent 3 hours working on, you're now being told it's not right. Then you have to go back and redo that whole panel, that whole page maybe. That can be stressful as well. That type of thing happens. You definitely want to have people. You definitely want to start them up with thicker skin. And I'm not sure. I'll be honest with you, Rob. I'm not sure some of the creatives today can deal with that.
Well, if you can't deal with that, you don't belong in the business.
I was watching Randy's face. There are a few. Randy. I mean, you have had. You mentioned, and we won't say names. We won't say names, but you had a portfolio. You said somebody went very unkindly.
They what?
They went through your portfolio and they were unkind, like completely unkind.
Oh yeah,
Right.
Very early on too.
If that would have happened today,
It was like right out of high school.
right?
And they were like, "This is shit. This looks like this, and what do you call that? A nose? And this elbow or this entire shoulder is out of its socket. What's wrong with this guy's part in his hair? It looks like he had a bullet crease the center of it. What's going on here? Yeah.
So
I had that happen.
okay, do you think that could have happened today to some of these creatives today, and he not end up on like Bleeding Cool or something? Like,
Oh yeah. Well, no, you're still going to get curmudgeon artists out there that are critiquing people.
Mhm.
But in hindsight, he was 100% correct. The shoulder was dislocated. The part was really bad, and it's just the way he delivered it.
Yeah.
You know.
You have to,
I always try to add a little sugar with the vinegar. You know. Yeah, you're doing this and this good, but man, this looks like crap. What's going on here? You know. It's like the advice I was giving you. Look at this page. This is an okay page. This happens here and there. But what you really want to do is spice up this and do that. And remember, you're in comics. And when you're in comics are all about over-exaggeration. So you don't want him almost hitting the guy. You want that punch to go straight through his face.
That was the day that I had to redo.
That's it. But I knew telling you that as a friend wasn't going to throw you out of comics. On the other hand, I've seen critiques that have literally left people crying and totally defeated with an incredible hole in their spirit.
Yeah.
I have seen that happen. I didn't do it, but I have seen it happen. And it was vicious. That guy was done.
yeah, but you also have to remember, Varian, some of this, like Randy's saying, tough love is very important. I go to panel after panel telling people there's no such thing as writer's block. And you could see a quarter of them are destroyed by this news. And I always put it like this. No one ever gets to say they have worker's block. If you have writer's block, that means you go back to work and you figure out, you write anything. Write about the stupid guy who can't write his story and how stupid he is and get that gear going. So you're like an artist. You can't finish the face, move on to something else. And that's the point, is that we're going to be professionals at what we're doing. We have to be professional and we have to be on time. Oh, hey, Luke Stone, you're there.
Finally.
It's 4 o'clock already? Oh, I didn't notice you were there.
Ding, ding, ding. I always pull out my Isaac Asimov story when it comes to that. Way back when you were only typing your manuscript up on typewriters, Asimov was incredibly prolific and doing everything. He was writing short stories. He was writing nonfiction pieces. He was writing books on the books on scripture. He was doing all of these different things, and he was doing them all at once. And the way he was doing it was he had a half a dozen typewriters sitting at his desk, with the paper loaded in the typewriter up to the point where he was jammed up or couldn't figure out exactly what to say. He'd just roll over to the next typewriter, read what was there, and continue on from that until he got stuck, move to the next one. And he was doing that 6 at a time. So he kicked out lots of short stories, lots of novels, lots of, and he was constantly rotating, stories out and nonfiction pieces. And he would, that's what you need to do when you're a writer in this business. You need to keep writing. Even if you think you're blocked, you need to keep writing. It's something else. If you can't, you're stuck on a passage or whatever. I found with dialogue, it's so easy to stand in front of the mirror and reenact it. Because if it doesn't sound right when you're speaking it, it's not right.
Well, I'll go one step further. It's not just writers. It's art. It's pretty much anyone that creates. If you're trying to do something, you got to do it. I know a few writers that they have a book, and it takes them a while to put a book out. And so a person put a book out last year. Their second issue comes out this year. And, sometimes things come up and it's hard to put a book out. It's expensive. You run into roadblocks. Somebody gets sick. A bill comes up, unexpected stuff. You just can't work on it. Life happens when you're an independent creator. I get it. Mm-hmm. But in the midst of that time, I said, so what did you write while you're waiting to be able to put this book out? Well, I didn't write anything. What the heck? I mean, if you're a writer, you write. If you're a musician, you do music. If if you're an artist, you do art. You got to continue to do that. And that's, I think, where that writer's block, or I'm blocked. I have a creative block. It's because you're just not doing it. Like, if you do something every day, it's going to open up that, eventually something good will come out of it. You look at these guys that have all these songs that are, top songs. How many songs did Prince have to write? To have as many hits as he did. That guy was probably writing. He's probably got hundreds of songs that never made it past his home studio because he's like, yeah, that's not any good. Because that's just part of the process. You just got to create. You got to do it.
Amen to that.
Exactly.
Believe it or not, we're actually running out of time, guys. So what I'm going to do, since there's 5 of you, I want each one of you to tell the world where you can be found. Our 1 hour panel. Now, if you guys want to stay on after the hour, I'm okay with that. But I promised everyone we do a 1 hour. But you know how panels are. After it, we always hang around and talk more with the crowd. So if you guys want to stay on, I can stay on for a bit. I got nothing going on. But I do want to end it in case anyone's going by the strict 60 minutes that I promised. Tell everyone where you're well, you're not going anywhere for a while, but tell them where they can find you online. And Chuck's back with us. He just had to step out for a minute. So we'll start with Chuck, who showed up on time, and we'll end with Luke, who didn't. So
yeah, that's my bad, guys.
Go ahead, Chuck. You're up.
Yeah, what's up? I'm Chuck Pineau. You can find me on Bonfire Press on Facebook, Belial Comic on Facebook. You can find Essence House, which is my metaphysical mystery audio drama, on anywhere where you check out your podcasts. You can track me down on Twitter at Chucky Pin, and of course, you can find out my kick-ass Chuck's Raw Reviews independent comic review site on YouTube.
Award-winning. That's right. Award-winning review site. All right, Varian. Tell them what you do with Indie Vault.
Sorry, first, wait a minute.
I just hang around.
Could you put Chuck back on the screen, full screen, real quick? Just for me. Chuck, push your head. Hey, cover your.
Sorry, say that again. You're really quiet over there, dude.
Yeah.
He's breaking up. He's breaking up.
I lowered my gain a little bit. So
If only he had better equipment.
Oh,
Chuck, push your cover your hair up a little bit, just a little bit, like push your hat back just a little bit. No, your hair, like not your beard, your top of your head, like your hat. Yeah, just like cover it, like make yeah. Oh my God, it's Dan Slott.
We'll talk after the show about you blocking me. I'm Variant Grant. You can find me at kid_v. Where else? Indie Vault. LastCallComics.com. You can find me on Facebook. Yeah, I'm always willing to talk comics or totally ignore those messages about comics that I don't agree with. Yeah, that's pretty much everywhere. I got a comic on Webtoon called Mr. Rusty's that I did. That's a part of the comic book universe I'm creating. It's a small part of it, but I do it for free. I only got one issue up there though. I am late on that book. I'm really late on doing it. I need to get to it. Maybe I will. I hear you.
All right.
I hear you.
All right, Randy, you're up.
Randy Zimmerman. I am an award-winning graphic and commercial artist. I've been doing alternative and independent comics for many, many years. I've done just about everything in this market that you can imagine. Weeby, Arrow, Massive Comics, banners are all mine, or I've been a big part of it. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me at the Zimm Geek channel on YouTube. Every Tuesday evening and Thursday morning, Varian and I do the Indie Volt podcast and the Breakfast Buzz that we do on the YouTube Indie Volt channel, as well as on Indie Volt Radio, so it's heard all around the world. We have some great responses from people from anywhere, everywhere, as far away as Peru and Spain and Germany. So that's the thing. If you want to see some of my work, I can point you to the Genesee County Parks and Recreation. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. J.N. Slott. Anyway, Genesee County Parks and Recreation, where I created a team of superheroes to instruct kids about preservation and conservation, called the Preservers, that you might have actually seen on Treehouse Masters on Animal Planet if you watch Treehouse Masters on Animal Planet. So.
That's where I know. Never mind. I don't watch it. I'm sorry.
That's where I've seen it. I was there for literally a blink of an eye, but my work, thankfully, was all over the episode called Nature's Superheroes.
Awesome.
That's cool.
It's a lot of fun. It's very
Man, that's
fun.
a heck of a rap sheet. Resume, rap sheet. I'm
Stick
sorry.
around long enough, everybody gets one, as long as you stay busy and you keep your eyes open for the unusual opportunities that a sequential artist can stumble onto.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah. Well, for all the viewers out there, my name is Luke Stone. I won an award in high school, so I guess that means I'm an award winner. I'm not going to say what the award was for.
Participation trophy.
Participation trophy.
Yay.
Thank you, soccer moms, for that. I'm the I do the pictures and the words for a book called Hybrids, the Sons of Gods. Done some other books in the past. Been publishing independent comics for about 5-6 years now. Been drawing comics for other people for a bit longer than that. You can find me on the YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/TheLouDog or look up Comics Project or Luke Stone Studios on there. Find me on that Twitter. You can tweet me there. It's at Luke Stone Studio, no S on the end, because that's more characters than they allow. And then I will be at the Facebook, and you can poke me on the book if you like. That's going to be at Luke Stone Studios. You can find me there, and find all those fun links and pictures. And I'm running a Kickstarter right now for Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, 1 through 5, the complete first saga. So you're going to see a whole lot of posts about that because I am shamelessly plugging that. I need your money. Thank you.
All right, guys. And this is ON-Conn, and you're actually part of the panel, part of the ON-Conn. ON-Conn, which is now with a double N, stands for Online Connections. The idea is that as this goes on with this coronavirus outbreak and people being afraid of it, we're going to be here, and we're going to continue to be here, and we're going to be supporting you guys, giving you information. Now is the time to learn. We're going to be fact sharing. Like I said earlier in the program, we have teamed up with Indie Vault. We have teamed up with the Rising Tide. Anyone else out there who wants to team up, we're going to team up with, so we can have a great conversation and keep things going. Because right now it's not the end of the world. Everything's okay. We're going to go back out. We're all going to live. Look, this is proof there are creators right now talking to you. No one has disappeared. This is just a bad moment in history. And
Luke did. Luke disappeared. He literally disappeared.
Oh, Luke's eating potato chips and he was crunching on screen. So
He's back.
Coronavirus got me. Look at that. You see that?
Not only did he show up late, but he starts eating chips in the middle of my food.
I'm like the bad kid in class right now. I'm normally so well behaved too, you know. I don't know what my problem is today.
If you check under his desk,
I'm
there's
freaking
gum under
incorrigible.
there, too.
And this is the day I didn't put up my Indie Devil thing, which it would have made sense. Today I came in as the advocate, man. Wow.
What'd you say, Chuck? I didn't hear you. What's that?
I said, and if you check under his desk, there's gum underneath there too, man. So,
Yeah.
yeah. You're that kid.
I'm that kid. I really am.
I would swear right now, but I wouldn't have to say Hail Mary or something after it. I can't curse in front of a pastor.
Oh, trust me, you can curse in front of me.
Oh, well, shit.
I've had board members curse in front of me, man. It's funny.
Oh. Hey, so you're on here with, well, I don't, me and Randy don't count. Randy, we're reverends, right?
I have been officially a reverend for 8 years as of today.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
Congrats.
I've done 7 weddings.
I am officially a reverend as well. Got my ordination through the Church of God, Anderson, Indiana.
And me too. I got mine 2 years ago on a dare.
I'm a reverend's grandson.
On a dare?
Yeah, reverend's grandson.
Yeah. I got mine on a dare and I pissed my mother off.
Mine wasn't quite a dare, but
I became a reverend at a request from a dear friend.
I became a reverend out of calling actually.
She called me up and asked me if I'd marry her. So I says, "Yeah, I'll file the paperwork if you
What
want."
if
She goes, "Really? Would you really?"
What if she was asking you to actually marry her?
Yeah, right.
You took it the other way.
It's so weird now, you know, because as a pastor, I've performed several weddings, so I'm like, oh yeah, I married them, and they're like, what? And I'm like, no, I didn't marry them. I mean, and we're not, you know, it's not in Utah. I mean, come on. I mean,
I was just gonna say, then I would have to become a Mormon, but that's
Yeah. beat you to that, didn't I?
a stray Mormon. Yeah,
It's
that's
cool,
okay.
man.
So
You're not that
far,
far off.
I've only had 1 divorce. So out of the.
Can we
out of
stop
all the
talking about
marriages that I've-
Cyclops and Wolverine and Jean?
Oh.
Oh,
Because I think that subject
Too
needs
soon.
to be brought up as often as possible and rubbed into somebody's face.
That's
Like a
the-
dog, like poop in a dog.
That's what Scott said.
Dog's nose.
Oh.
I think it's brought up a lot, Wolverine.
Oh, you nasty man.
No.
I
Kids are
became,
watching.
for
Kids
those
are
wondering, I became a devil when at 16 some woman pointed and said, "Look, that white devil," and it's just stuck since then.
That's why you got so many reverends on here. You're the individual. I get
There you
it.
go.
Yeah,
We're fighting for Chuck's soul.
yeah, he's trying to atone. Lord, I apologize. I'm gonna have some reverends on my show this week.
You got to play both sides just in case.
Well, last time I checked, heaven's not a in by association kind of thing. It's you got to have your own ticket. So.
All right, so let's get in the show real quick. Do the locusts in Africa and this spreading disease worry any of you reverends that God is trying to send us a message?
You guys have been trying to send us a message for a long time, man.
I didn't get the email.
Plague in Africa?
No, they're
Again?
locusts.
I know.
Locusts here.
Yeah, what else is new? They've been having locusts in Africa all this time. I'm not worried about it now. Besides that,
Although he started with a mask on, remember?
Yeah,
He came
yeah,
on as
yeah.
Optimus Prime.
no. It's like this. Listen, look. I'm sorry. I'm a bit of an ass, but listen, locusts in Africa. I can't find toilet tissue.
You can't find toilet.
There's some certain priorities for this man.
My issues are far greater than the locusts.
All hate mail to indievolt.com.
Yeah, it's like priorities. Some people in Africa have to deal with locusts, or I can't find toilet paper. I'm worried about my own backside right now.
I just received an email. I have been effective immediately canceled from AfricaCon. So yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
That's African.
Yeah, AfricaCon.
That's okay. I was never invited for
African.
something.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wasn't invited.
Because your name's the White Devil, dude. What do you think?
My name.
Why he would be
Call
invited.
me. Really? I just embraced it and made it my own. And
Like
with
what?
that, we're going to end the program.
Why are people of color afraid of me? I don't know.
Send all hate mail to the Reverend Luke. Yours, not mine. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, if we haven't been canceled.
Man, I am in some